His story recently made national headlines after the SpaceX IPO turned his employee stock into more than $1 million. But this conversation is about much more than wealth. It's about craftsmanship, opportunity, ownership, and what's possible through career and tech education pathways.
Man lives, 135 feet in the air, doing welds, dealing with wind, the nature, and all that comes with it. Rain sometimes, and still have to make those welds. He was a handyman, so he did many jobs, he did different things. So it didn't matter what he did, he always taught me, it doesn't matter what you do, whatever you do, decide to do, and just make sure you do it right and to the best of your ability, right? So that's what kind of stuck to me, and I told him about it.
You are listening to the Global CTE Podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisholm.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Global CTE Podcast. I'm your host, Sylvester Chisholm. This is the place where I interview the best, the brightest, the innovators, the movers, and the shakers. Today, we are in for a very special treat. Coming all the way from Florida, I have Mr. Juan Hernandez, former SpaceX Welder, current Blue Origin Welder and Fabricator. Excited to have him on today. So let me tell you a little about Juan. Juan Hernandez is former SpaceX Welding Supervisor and current welder and fabricator at Blue Origin. Juan immigrated to the United States from Mexico and built a remarkable career in the skilled trades, helping build rockets and spacecraft along the way. His story recently made national headlines after the SpaceX IPO turned his employee stock into more than $1 million. But this conversation is about much more than wealth. It's about craftsmanship, opportunity, ownership, and what's possible through career and tech education pathways. Juan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to have you on the pod. This is one of my goals, to lift up the great stories, the wins, the success stories that are happening across CTE. I think yours is very interesting. Your journey through as welding to wealth, I think it's a very interesting journey, man. So I think it's something our educators, our administrators, people across the country need to hear, this success story from the skilled trades. So I know right now we're at Blue Origin, previously SpaceX, but man, what's the origin story? How did you get here, Juan?
Well, I started very early, my career, around 18 years old. That's when I ever first saw a welder working in a factory where I was just happened to be helper. And I was just curious about it. At first, I didn't know what it was. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't know what welding was at the time. Just coming from Mexico, and just got all I was ever taught, was just to work hard. So, along the way, I saw these guys, making cool stuff, building stuff, welding together, and I started digging into it. Just got a little itch for, getting to see what they were doing. And just, one of my jobs offered, the chance for me to practice, and I took it, took him upon it. It took me, a few months. They finally gave me a shot, to do a weld test, and then I started welding for them. That's kind of everything got started, basically.
Do you remember what the welding test was? Like
it was just something visual. What at the time we were welding bumper replacements for trucks.
Okay.
So everything was just about aesthetics. So if it looked good, then you was good. So I kind of got good at making good looking welds.
Wow, that's cool. So your journey, Juan, it really starts almost like an apprenticeship. Like you really just jumped in and was like, learn one thing, then learn the next thing.
Yep. I've had many jobs, like I said, since when I first started welding, 18, 20 years old, somewhere around there. Jump from one company to the next. Every job you take, it's always, even if you are a welder, there's always a different process that you got to get familiar with, everywhere you go. So luckily I've had a few jobs along the way that taught me all these things. In one job I was welding MIG. The next job I was welding flux core. The next one I learned how to do stick. Then along the way, I started learning how to read blueprints and do all this technical stuff. We do wall call outs, measurements and this and that. But every job taught me something different.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I'm hearing like some interesting underpinnings. Like you said, like one of the things you just always grew up with was that spirit of hard work. Talk to me about that. Like where does that come from? Like
I comes from my dad, like he always when he brought us here to the United States, like he was a handyman, so he did many jobs, he did different things, and so it didn't matter what he did, always like he always taught me it doesn't matter what you do, whatever you do, decide to do, and just make sure you do it right and to the best of your ability, right? So that's what I kind of stuck to me, and I told him about it. Just because of all this that came up, I thought, hey, like this is pretty much what's, drove me to be excellent at what I do, right? And he's like, I really don't remember telling you that. Like, but somehow that sticks to you as a kid, So yeah, that's that kind of the attitude I took to every job that I ever had. One of my greatest fears is to burn bridges. A lot of people don't care about burning bridges, but I can happily say that every job that I've ever gone to, I can always go back, So
yeah, see that's the stuff, man. Like it's both we talk a lot about that, both the hard skills, like can you pass the weld test?
Yes.
But then like how are you showing up as a person every day? Like are you showing up on time and that's the advice from your dad, like trying to be excellent in everything that you do, no matter what it is, and how that ends up leading to other opportunities,
Exactly.
Which I think go ahead, go.
Yeah, the only reason I ever even was at SpaceX or was offered the opportunity is because of a job that I had before, and a person that I used to work with really close. He saw the drive I had and the weld that the welds that I was capable of doing, and my work ethic and all that. And he's the one that offered the job for me. Like, hey, they're hiring over here. I just started. They need more welders. I know you're a good welder. You mind coming over and do the test? And then so that's how I got started in SpaceX. And it's all just from showing that you can do the work and that you are willing to do the work, however it is. If it's hard, if it's a tough position, and you're gonna do it right, Yeah. So that takes you to the next place. And like I said, I've been pretty lucky and never really had or been in need of a job. I always had something, whether from other friendships or just from the history that I've been having, working in different projects.
Yeah, no, man, those relationships matter. I had a guy on the podcast who said that it's some study that says approximately like 70% of jobs that people have come from a referral or from like so like you can think you're just gonna go on the job board and just put your name in the hat, but usually it's like I know Juan and Juan knows me from the other company, and Juan calls me and is like, hey man, you should apply here. I can put in a good word for you. Yeah. And that's how things happen. But you have to show up as the highest version of yourself.
That has to be first and foremost every single time,
Yeah, for sure.
Like even when now that I'm here at Blue Origin, I didn't know this at the time, but I applied on LinkedIn, and I just saw the opportunity and the position. I applied for it. I didn't know that one of the supervisors that was hiring for that job was a person that I worked with in SpaceX. I didn't know he was there. He was a supervisor at the time. He's like, and then he called me up and he's like, hey dude, like looking for a job? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, oh, I just saw your resume pop through, and I was wondering, if it was the right guy that he, that we worked together. And then he's like, and so from that, pretty much he just took that application, put it to the top, just from like our back story basically.
Yep.
And the way we work together.
So both opportunities came from those personal relationships.
Exactly.
I think
from work ethic.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, man. Cause like that can be the missing piece. It's like, yeah, you need to know the technical skill and be good at it, but like how you manage those relationships and social capital That's a great storyline to see. So, okay, so let's go back. I want to talk about Blue Origin too, but let's go back. So how do you end up at SpaceX, and like what type of work were you doing there? Like,
We were building all the structures for the test stands that or the launch pads. Actually, at that time, it was like 39A, like famous launch pad 39A, where
yep.
they went to the moon. So when I first started, they were building the strong bag to lift the heavy rocket onto the pad, and we're doing all that work. I think one of the pictures I saw online, it's of me working on that tower at the very top and doing the weld there. But then we did that there. We traveled because at the time I was traveling a lot for work. So I was here traveling. My base home was in Dallas, in Texas. So every job that I took at the time was always out of town, and it was no different with this one. I was here in Florida. I was here for like 3 months. Then they had a project in Vandenberg in California. Yeah. So we went out there. I stayed about a year in Vandenberg. We're doing the reaction fixture for that rocket out there. Like they were doing all the upgrades for that new, new system that they were installing at the time, for launching. And then after that, Pad 40 here in Florida blew up. So they called us all back to do all the, to fix Pad 40 and get it back online. That was kind of a huge project, because the pad it blew up on the pad. The rocket blew up on the pad, and it kind of destroyed everything. Oh, wow. So yeah, it was pretty much salvage what you could, and rebuild what you couldn't. So it was pretty hectic, but it was pretty awesome work. I never worked at a place where everything you build is different. It's not like a factory. You're always making the same thing, and that's why I kind of like fell in love with the industry. Like it's the stuff that we're doing now. It's every project is always different. You bring on the skills that you had along the years, but every project that you work on is always interesting, and then in a way that is unique.
So it's not like today I'm going to do 1,000 bumpers. Tomorrow I'm doing 1,000 bumpers. It's like something different projects. Yeah.
Yeah. You might be working on the same project, but it's always something so huge that it's, you're building a different part of it every day or every week. And it's always, it's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. What's that? I'm just curious. What's that feel like when you're watching one of the rockets launch, and you had something to do with some of the pieces that's holding together there? Like, what's that feel like?
It's a pretty cool feeling. It's when I just starting from the beginning, it's you never think about those type of things, or what the impact it is that the work that you're doing has on the world, and it kind of puts everything into perspective. Just looking at those launches, and like making sure, now they're launching like every other day, seems like. And when I first started, it was just such an unreal thing to happen. They were launching like every 6 months, I believe. Yeah. And it was just an amazing thing every time. Now, when I was in Brownsville, they were doing the Starship, and I got to see a few of those, and it's the same feeling. It's like it doesn't get old.
That's cool, man. What I want to talk something which I thought was interesting, was like the equity piece of the story with working at SpaceX. Is like, as much as you're comfortable with sharing, like how does that work? Like that was offered to you from the beginning to be able to have the shares in SpaceX, or did that come with like, okay, now you're in the supervisor role, like this is part of a bonus or something, or how did that even?
It was offered to everybody, really.
Okay.
Every welder, everybody that started with SpaceX in like a permanent position was offered some kind of share in the company. So that's how I got it from the beginning. Yeah. When I first started, I started as a contractor, and it just so happened that they were trying to fill up some positions, and they offered me, like, a month in, they offered me a permanent position. And at the time I just started the job. So, it was kind of hard for me to say, no, I don't want it. Right. And then I will be without a job again. So I kind of just went with it. And they offered, I didn't know any better, so I didn't ask for anything. They would just what came with the package, you know. So, and you know, obviously, I didn't never been offered that before. I didn't know what it was or what how could I take advantage of it, or I knew it was some money that they were giving me for like being part of the company, right? They spread it out in a way that you get it all if you stay with the company for at least 5 years. So, you know, kind of an incentive to like not leave for the next race, you know, basically. So, you know, we worked like at the end, like within the year, like I was pretty much up to speed on what it meant and what it was and how I could take advantage of it. But yeah, it was something like unheard of. I mean, at the time it wasn't that much, but you could see like even back then, like every 6 months when you had evaluation, you know, it was always going up little by little. And then like every year, you know, like if you did great on a project, you know, you get incentivized with more stock. If you got near like those 5 years, they'll throw you another bonus just to keep you another 5 years. You know, when I took the supervisor position, they gave me another bonus as well in stock. Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to share like with the podcast too, like for future people, like the guys that are young and try to get into the industry. It's not always about how much the money sign that's attached to your position right out the gate. You know, some companies like me, maybe that $28 at the beginning might not have been that much, but now, you know, thinking back, you know, all that extra money that came from just being with the company and then sticking out through it, it makes a whole lot of difference. It makes a whole lot of sense of you sticking it out and doing the tough work for a little bit less than the next guy that's making, you know, maybe $10 more or whatever, you know. Easy. You got to do it for the right reason and have a foresight in your career that in realizing that that's what you want. You know, you want a company that appreciates what you're doing in a way that nobody else does, really.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, Juan. That's you took my question, but thank you for just answering it, because I think that's so important to see the balance between both. It's like it is salary or wages, but equity is the piece that helps to create the wealth.
And often goes unseen and unrealized, you know?
Yep. No, that's cool. And so when you even joined SpaceX, were you familiar with like the work that they were doing in terms of like sending rockets to space and all of that stuff?
No, not really. Like I said, I was familiar with the work that I was going to contract, what I was getting contract for, which is just building structures and doing heavy plate structures of all kinds. One of my previous jobs was in Milwaukee, building excavators for P&H. And that was all like heavy, you know, 2-3 inch plate, you know, welding inside the boxes and awkward positions and all that stuff. So here it was nothing different, you know, heavy plate, you know, rockets, you know, they use all these launch mounts and launch pads. They have to take the beating. So everything's heavy, everything's big welds. Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Like you just said, welding in awkward positions. So like, were you ever like super high up doing the weld, or
I've been through all of it. Like I said, working in towers, working inside confined spaces, you know, welding in places where like you can barely like just fit your head in sideways just to see where you're welding. All that's just part of the job. Like I said, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, those are the things that you have to be comfortable doing if you're in this industry. And yeah, they're not easy, but they're not, you know, they're not tough. They're not so hard that you can't do it either. Like I said, one of my favorite things to say is always, where there's a will, there's a way. And people make fun of me for that because, you know, like if you really want to do something, you find a way to do it, and it can be done right. So
that's cool, man. So I'm curious to prepare. I'm gonna take it back to like our students into the school. So imagine a 16-year-old welder who's listening to this today, and I want a career like yours. Like, what advice would you give them if they're just starting their first welding classes?
Learn everything you can. Like I said, you're never gonna learn yeah, as from personal experience, you're never gonna learn everything of one person or one job. If you decide to go through this career, yeah, you're gonna go to school, but they're gonna teach you how to do a test, and they're gonna teach you the bare minimum. But don't go out of don't go out of your school into a job thinking that every there's, like I said, I worked in many places, and one of the things that kind of made me stand out is that I was always eager to learn something new. If you're always eager to learn something new, people will teach you, and you will learn, and you will get to the spot where you're at, where you need to be in life, and even in the career. People respect the attitude that you bring into the company. That's one of the biggest things. Yeah, even now I look for in younger guys that come across, that I see in the job site.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Now, what I like about your journey, Juan, is that it was heavy in not like the school-based learning, but like on the job apprenticeship.
Yes.
You're probably next to a guy who's been doing it for years, and they're showing you the ropes. What suggestions or advice would you give to like education leaders about maybe having more of those real experiences, or trying to partner with companies to have those apprenticeships? Thoughts on that? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, obviously, yeah. When from the position that I was in and as a supervisor, it came many realizations. Like you realize a lot of things that you don't see, like from just being a welder perspective.
Yeah.
I had to deal with a lot of people that came into the job, and the attitudes and everything was different. Like we had to train 80%, even though they were seasoned welders. 80% of the people that they brought in, or that we brought in, had to be trained because they weren't ready for like the stuff that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice to educators and all that, I tried to do it when I was in SpaceX, trying to like go around locally to local schools and pretty much tell them, this is what's expected, right? Give them a list, and this is how we expect you guys to train these guys so that they're useful to us, and that we don't have to spend that extra time doing it, and we could accomplish our jobs, and these guys can be better set for success instead of sending them for failure. Because it's not, obviously, like one thing that I've learned throughout the years, that every job is different, and it's really not a cookie cutter type of education that needs to happen anymore. Everybody needs and expects something different out of a welder, and the closer you can get them to that position, the better you're gonna prepare them for that. And the better outcome for themselves, for the futures.
What are some of the things that are on that list, like that would take that 80% down for you in terms of training? Like, what are is it more learning heavy welding? Because that's something I've heard you talk a lot about, or what?
Yeah, heavy plates.
Heavy plates.
Like heat management. A lot of people don't know what that is until they come to a place like where we are at. There's different like metallurgy stuff. Should be, beat into like the kids, because that's the way you manage the temperature on heavy metals. It's pretty important. You can't have a weld that's gonna crack on you because you didn't manage the heat correctly, and stuff that we come across all the time. But you don't see, like, all you see in schools, like, oh yeah, you're welding this 1-inch plate, but what happens when you welding a 2-inch to a 3-inch plate? And all that heat is just getting sucked out of your weld like immediately if you didn't prepare it correctly. So a lot of those things that people are not familiar with, we're dealing with in the day-to-day when guys are coming into our job, like how to deal with equipment like man baskets, scissor lifts, all that stuff. Like I think that at this point, like all that training should become standard with a welder, pretty much. Not something that you be getting taught, because there a lot of stuff. The safety of it's huge. You can't just throw somebody new in a forklift, even now. Oh yeah, I'm a welder, but like you can't drive a forklift. We're doing all types of construction out there, like working outside, working with all trains, toll Ks and all that. big forklift, man lifts, 135 feet in the air, doing welds, dealing with wind, the nature, and all that comes with it, rain sometimes, and still have to make those welds. So all that comes with experience, but the more familiar these guys are coming with, the better they're gonna be set for those challenges, outside.
Yeah, that's good, man. Man, why I knew you were gonna drop the gems on this. I knew you were gonna do it. Man. Thank you for sharing that. Like that's big. Those are big insights. Because I know people are thinking like, wow, like they may have a limited view of the opportunity in welding. They may not be thinking SpaceX, Blue Origin rockets, or 100 feet in the air welding in the rain. Like all these nuances.
Exactly. Everything's part of the job. And yeah, you're a welder and you're expected to make these welds. But how are you going to make these welds? It's up to you really when you're there and you're faced with the challenge.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Any interesting things? Like what's it like at Blue Origin now? Like what's that like?
Same. Like I said, we're it reminds me back to like Pad 40 when he blew up. They just had a little something there. So we're gonna be building a whole new pad, and that's just barely starting now. So it's like I said, I started here in January, so we're barely getting the beginning of these new projects. So it's pretty exciting, to be honest. It brings me back to like SpaceX, like the elden days, where just starting and like you're building all this new stuff. That's kind of like why I decided to jump in with Blue, because that's what they're doing now. They're doing all the structures that are gonna be the future for the company. And yeah, that's what I'm good at. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's exciting. It seems like there's curiosity is big with you. Like it seems like you stay curious about, well, what's next? What else is out there? For me to learn or to explore. So that's cool, man. I really
super important.
Any last thoughts that you would want to share to future welders?
Just put the time in. It's try to soak up everything. Learn as much as you can from the guy next to you. Always have the right attitude. Have the willingness to tackle a job. A lot of times it's not the way that you're taught, but like always think of in innovative ways to tackle a project. Because like I said, nobody has the right way to do it. It's just everybody has a way to do it, but not always the right way. And there's always a right way, a better way, or even better way to do it. So yeah, it's just think with innovation in your mind, and you'll be doing good.
Awesome, man. My last question, I told you I ask everyone this, curious your perspective as a welding supervisor working on rockets and all SpaceX and Blue Origin. What's your thoughts? What's your vision for the future of career and tech education?
Well, careers in tech, it's like I said, I came from like learning myself. It wasn't, I didn't get familiar with the careers in tech and all that until like I later, started meeting more people, and I came from that background.
Yeah.
And it's just, we just need to make sure that we are telling these people, these new kids, in high school, like, yeah, these things are amazing, but they're tough, and like, you gotta have the right attitudes, and just you gotta bring that with you to the job. And you'll be doing great. Yeah, teach them the right things. Yeah,
that's cool, Juan. Thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast today to talk about everything from welding, the rockets, SpaceX, Blue Origin. But I really appreciate the attitude, the stuff you talked about with the mindset of like coming in as a hard worker, and keeping that curiosity about learning and trying to do great work. So
yes.
Juan, thank you for joining on the pod. Everyone who's listening, if you enjoyed this episode, don't be selfish, share it with a friend. Juan dropped a lot of great gems here. Until the next episode, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.